we celebrate Buddha's birthday, enlightenment, and nirvana. So who is the Buddha? Buddha was not a god. Buddha was a human being just like you and me. He suffered just as we do in our daily life. But Buddha used the suffering as the means to cultivate and to liberate himself. Buddha's first name is Siddhartha. There is a novel of Siddhartha. You can read it. It's a very good book. And his last name was Gautama. So sometimes we call it Gautama Buddha. He was born in 6th century BC in Lumbini. Right now it's in Nepal, but at that time was northern part of India. So Buddha means awakened one. So a human being, Siddhartha, practiced and awakened and became a Buddha. So if we understand how Siddhartha inspired and motivated and how he practiced and how he learned what we discovered through his practice, then we can learn from his experience. So Buddha taught everybody to live a happy life and to live a peaceful life. It shows us how to understand ourselves and how to solve and how to cope our daily problems. Buddha had a curiosity, intelligence, and privilege. In the similar way, we have that curiosity and intelligence and privilege to have access to Buddha Dharma in the West. Do you feel that you're privileged to find Buddha Dharma, be able to learn Dharma, and encounter Buddhism in its teaching? What was Buddha's motivation? How did he begin the practice of meditation and journey of self-discovery? When Siddhartha was born, the psychic predicted that he would be a universal monarchy or an awakened one. And his father, of course, wanted him to grow as a good king. So he provided all luxury life with music and dance and pleasure and pretty women and everything. But when he was growing up, he got married and had a son. When he was 29 years old, he was curious about life outside of the palace, since he was always in the palace enjoying this luxury life. So he went out to the street and visited the village. And he saw a sick man. It was a very sick man. He was about his age, and he asked his servant, "What's wrong with him?" And his servant replied that he's sick, he's extremely sick. He asked again, "Will I get sick like him?" And servant replied, "Yes, you will get sick like him." So he was shocked. He will get sick like him. And his second journey to the town, he saw a very, very old man, a lot of wrinkles and gray hair. So Siddhartha asked his servant, "What's wrong with him?" He said that he's an old man. He's getting very old. So Siddhartha asked then, "Will I get old like him?" yes, you will get old. And he was shocked again. He will be like that very old man. And his third trip, he saw a funeral, corpse in the funeral, and he asked, what's wrong with him? And his servant replied, he's dead. So he was shocked again. And will I die one day? Servant said, yes, you will die one day. So through his visit and outside of knowing just the world, he was shocked of the three elements of a human aspect: aging, illness, and death. Both journey to the town, he saw a meditating monk. So he asked his servant, what is he doing there? Doesn't move, do nothing, just sit. And servant replied that he is meditating. He renounced it to give up some part to search for the inner peace. So he was meditating. So he was very frustrated by observing the suffering of human condition, and he will be one day aging, getting sick, and die. So it was troublesome to Siddhartha when he was 29 years old. He was very frustrated, very disappointed, and he was thinking about that meditating monk. He was very attracted to that. So he looked around his family. There is no way to persuade his family. So he left palace in the middle of the night. Then he began this journey. So like Gautama Buddha, looking at suffering, human suffering, looking at this frustration and disappointment, he made a very strong motivation to end it, to find out why, and to find liberation. So if we see things in your life, whether it's challenges and difficulties or problems, if you see it very clearly with 100% of your attention, you will have this kind of a motivation and full commitment to begin new life here and now, today. So he spent the next 6 years full time with a full commitment, studying with many teachers and meditating and practicing, and many different aesthetic practice too. Then one day he realized that teaching was not really help him to really understand why there is suffering in human life. So he sat under the Bodhi tree and vowed, I will not get up from meditation until I solve this problem of suffering. So he was sitting under the Bodhi tree and keep practicing meditation day and night. So 49 days of this, his consistent practice under the Bodhi tree in Bodhi Gaya in India now, he found the answer. He was very happy to find the cause of suffering and how to end suffering. So he achieved complete and supreme enlightenment. After this experience, he was 35 years old when he was completely enlightened. And then he talked about the evolution of his discovery and human happiness. He talked about two kinds of happiness. First is like a secular happiness. He enjoyed the secular happiness when he was in the palace. But secular or worldly happiness depends on the condition, external conditions and external situations, and and external environment. This secular happiness comes from when your desire or when your wish is met. But look around the world. Whenever we have a wish, if I have a nice car, I'll be happy. When you get a nice car, for a moment, for a while, you'll be happy and looking for something else. So secular or worldly happiness always creates a more desire or wanting to do something different or finding something more. If you're looking for a good computer, if I have a good computer, doesn't have virus or doesn't malfunction, then you will work hard to get it. After you get it, for a while you will be happy and then you look for something else. So this is a worldly happiness we are engaging in. So this is depend on something else, something external. That's why Buddha called this worldly happiness as a happiness of bondage. If the condition met, you are happy. If disappears or if your mind changes, you are not happy. So worldly happiness is a happiness of slavery because you are dependent on something external power. When you have this happiness of freedom, your happiness of freedom is unconditional because you are not dependent on anything, any circumstance or any external condition. When you have this happiness of freedom, it is coming from within, from your own mind. This happiness does not depend on what's going on around the world or what's going on in life around you. So what kind of happiness are you seeking? What kind of happiness do you pursue? Do you want to pursue a more reliable happiness? Or you are always chasing and your expectations coming from that secular happiness? So we can think about it. I think everybody wants to have some kind of a positive, happy quality of life, not depending on anybody or anything external, but coming from within. So Buddha enjoyed this meditation, this solitude, and training of bringing his mind and body together. So his intention was very sharp, and he experienced tranquility. Through the experience of this tranquility, he experienced calmness, real peace in his mind, and experienced happiness of concentration. When you meditate here this morning, or anytime when you meditate, if you calm your mind, if you're calming down your mind and letting go of all distractions, if you are able to do that, settle down with your breathing, just become your breathing. It is a very joyful experience. So through this kind of practice, Buddha experienced this unmixed happiness. And Buddha enjoyed this samadhi concentration. So if we cultivate this kind of a samadhi concentration or cultivate this happiness of freedom coming from inwardly, then you don't want to be anything different. The secular worldly happiness always want to be something different. But this happiness of freedom makes you happy just as you are. You don't have to be different, or you don't have to become a different person. So this is Gautama Buddha's experience, as Sotaesan also experienced that all of us has this capacity of experiencing tranquility, cultivating this concentration, especially samadhi concentration and calmness. So what did Buddha discover through this practice? What did he discover? Buddha discovers that you don't have to suffer like that, like the condition he observed. Buddha discovered that there is a way to reduce and eliminate suffering. There are so much misconceptions about the Buddhism. People say Buddhism talk about the suffering all the time. No, we don't talk about suffering. We talk about how to reduce and eliminate and end the suffering. We analyze this uneasiness or dissatisfactory or pain or struggle and frustration and disappointment in our lives. Why? We want to know the cause of those suffering, cause of that frustration, causes of that dissatisfaction. If you know the cause, just to remove the cause, then you will be liberated. So Buddhism, from now on, talk to anybody who say that Buddhism is not about the suffering, it's about ending, reducing, and eliminating suffering. So when we understand that there is a way to eliminate suffering, way to end the suffering, way to reduce frustration, dissatisfaction, depression, or whatever suffering you experience, there is a way to eliminate them all. What a powerful message is it? You have a power to eliminate your dissatisfaction. And what are the way? What are the way to liberate yourself? Buddha said the causes of unhappiness are craving, desire, wanting mind, illness, and ignorance. So if we know this, everybody, it happened to Gautama Buddha 2,500 years ago. About 97 years ago, it happened to Sotaesan. It happened to you too. It can happen to everybody in this world and everywhere, right here and right now. So this is the reason we are coming to temple, coming to learn Buddha Dharma. The key to eliminate any frustration, any hardship, any difficulties, any depression, any problems, any sufferings can be removing all of your craving, illness, and ignorance. Is it simple? If we remove any ignorance, not knowing about the Buddha Dharma or universal principle, or removing any ill will, anger, hatred, any kind, jealousy, delusion, arrogance, if you remove them, you will liberate yourself. You will not have suffering anymore. And if you remove craving, attachment, desire, wanting mind, hang on, you will liberate yourself. Your suffering, your frustration, your problem will end. So this is what Buddha discovered and taught us rest of his life how to do it in many different ways. So if you just get it one thing, just a very simple method here, removing your craving, removing your ill will, and removing your ignorance. So Buddha Dharma is the way to end, eliminate, and reduce dissatisfaction in human life. So each step of the way, we remove the cause of unhappiness, cause of problem, cause of frustration. When you remove those from your mind, from your habit, from your life, that is really joyful. The real joy comes from when you let them go. This is the Buddha talked about the freedom, and Buddha talked about the happiness of freedom. When you let them go, you become free. You don't have to suffer anymore. Sometimes we need to establish real consistent practice in order to do this. Letting go of or removing all ills, ill will or ignorance or craving is not easy at all. If you carefully watching your mind, carefully observe human life and human relations, if you really pay attention to this is a whole world it's about, to fulfill their craving, to fulfill their desires. So in the beginning, we can have this kind of practice be a little more condition, creating kind of external condition to be more content or to have a better spiritual experience or practice, and more of peace and joy in your life, that's increasing it. As you practice through daily life, coming temple or sitting on your cushion is not only time to practice, that is a real time to practice, really focusing on your breath, coming back 100% to your inner center and become breath itself. And during the daily life outside, your life becomes the practice itself. So you don't have to react to anything, even though we have to live with angry people around us. We don't have to respond to everything, even though there are so many people who have so much greed. You don't have to really do anything with it. Just be focused and be centered and have a joy to remove this craving, this ill will or ignorance. The more we free ourselves from desire or craving, ignorance or hatred, the greater happiness we will have. So if you look at humanity, about 7 billion people now on earth, some of them have 100% of this greed, hatred, and ignorance. They're creating a lot of problems. So the rest of humanity try to clean it up, try to solve it, try to help them out. And there are very different levels of people. And some of them, maybe 75% of greed or hatred, or some others, so 50-50. At least who comes to the temple, I think, at least you have a 50-50. 50% of letting go of all those. And 50% you are acquiring and cultivating inner peace and inner joy and happiness of freedom. At least you experience some of them. That's why I think you continue to come and continue practice. And if you keep practicing it, you can let go of 75% of those ill will or ignorance or craving, and 25%. Sometimes you back and forth. And if you keep practicing it, 5%. And so 95% of inner peace and inner joy, there is no craving arrives, no craving arising when you see those things, even tempting situation, even with angry people, you don't have that mind arise to respond or to say something or to counterbalance with that negativity. So if you keep practicing it and continue it, maybe 1% left. 1% of your mind have a cell, sometime it appears as a wandering thought. But if you keep practicing it, you will be able to remove all your desires, all of cravings, all of your ignorance, all of your ill will and anger and hatred. This, we call it nirvana. It happened to you. It can happen to you. If you have, like Gautama Buddha's commitment, consistent practice, really dedicating cultivation like him, then one day you can experience yourself this nirvana. Gautama Buddha talked about the 3 levels of nirvana, 3 different kinds of nirvana. So first nirvana, he called it supreme enlightenment. He calls it, it's coming from peace and become immortal. So nirvana is available for all of us if we keep removing these 3 things: greed, ignorance, and hatred. If we keep practicing by letting go of all those, you will first experience bliss. And second, he described nirvana as uncreated, unformed, as beyond the earth, unfathomable and immeasurable, just like Irwan-san. When you look at the Irwan-san, it is your Buddha nature. It's a symbol of nirvana. It's beyond all your craving, beyond your thought. So this is, Gautama Buddha talked about the second types of nirvana is that before any thought arise. This is the symbol of here. It's before your thought arise. So if you keep meditating, hopefully 10 years, for 20 years, a lifelong practice, and then one day you get up, you have this, and not a single thought arises. You experience this irvansa, you experience this nirvana. Third, Buddha talked about nirvana, described as a freedom from conflict and selfishness. Nirvana is a freedom from your conflict and from your selfishness, and eradication of craving, hatred, and delusion. So we understand now here 3 different types of nirvana. One is the first nirvana, he talked about the bliss. Second, he talked about before your thought arise, symbol here. And third, he talked about letting go, removing, and freedom from conflict and selfishness. Then in this stage, your ego dies. There is no more of keep saying I, my, me, making that cause of suffering, making cause of unhappiness, creating cause of the frustration and dissatisfaction. So Buddha demonstrated throughout his life that nirvana is not the place you will go after death, but you can experience nirvana here and now within your lifetime. So right after he attained nirvana, the Gautama Buddha, he didn't enter nirvana right away. He was 35 years old. He passed away at 80 years old. So he spent 45 years of constant teaching practicing and guiding people to recognize this very powerful news that you can end your own suffering. As Gautama Buddha set it out, that it can happen to anybody here, live in bliss, possible if we follow Buddha Dharma and Buddha's teaching and eradicate, totally remove all the causes of suffering and dissatisfaction. So Buddha found these ways to end suffering and dissatisfaction. So what is the key? Remember, the key to end the suffering, frustration, and difficulties and hardship is to remove all of your desires. Can you do that? Remove all ill wills, remove all ignorance. So without these causes of suffering, causes of dissatisfaction, we can experience liberation and absolute happiness and perfect wisdom and peace, or the positive quality of enlightenment. So Buddha keep teaching next 45 years about his discovery of this ending of human suffering. And the final day, Ananda was weeping, and Gautama Buddha was really lie down in deathbed, and he get up and he said the final message that you are your own refuge, you are your own light. So by understanding how Buddha motivated, how Buddha practiced, and what he discovered, the truth, universal truth, that we can become like him. That's why it's very important to know that he was a human being like you and I. And if we have that kind of motivation, full commitment, consistent practice, we can experience what he's describing here as happiness or freedom and nirvana. So as a way to celebrate Gautama Buddha's life, birth, and enlightenment and nirvana, we have this full lotus lantern. So symbol of a lotus in Buddhism is a way to cultivate our life like a lotus. Lotus flower, their root is deep in the mud, deep, dirty mud. But the stem shooting out, coming from the water and growing this way, and then blossom beautiful flower when sunshine. So if you watch this lotus flower, it's beautiful, especially in the morning. They stayed under the water, and as the sun rises, it comes up and up and up and open it so beautifully. So this is a symbol of our practice, progress of our own practice. We have to live in the muddy water, like samsara here is materialism. We are living in the mud of 21st century materialism. Material goods and services are really heavy. But through our practice, we grow in spirit. And just moving, it's passing through water, we are growing through our consistent practice, and then coming out above the water and the blossom of beautiful sunshine, enlightenment. So this is the symbol we are taking today. We can live like a lotus flower. If everybody here become lotus flower, it will be so beautiful. Our world will be transforming through you, through each one of you, with a consistent practice. How many of you really practice now the living Dharma? Especially those of you who went to and attended the meditation retreat. Are you keeping Dharma record? Good. Are you keeping the mindfulness practice with the mind study? Yeah, this is the tool. We have now a tool to really let go of all those three elements which are the cause of the dissatisfaction and hardship and suffering. If you keep practicing it, if you are interested in getting these tools, you can talk to Doyon or myself after service. So it is possible. If we keep practicing, be mindful throughout the day, the moment you wake up and open your eyes, be mindful, aware of your unborn thought. Your mind is unborn, and experience it. And throughout the sitting, from beginning to the end, be mindful just with your breathing. So when you have a living Dharma next to you and have a mind study, clicking mindful and unmindful practice all the time, there is a way, there is a really consistent way to letting go of and removing of these causes of suffering, greed, hatred, and ignorance. So in the coming weeks and months, find ways to establish that the consistent practice. Think about it, Gautama Buddha, for 6 years of a full time with 100% commitment. We can at least begin today, next 6 years, following Gautama Buddha's footsteps, practice as much as possible, be mindful all the time like him, and one day you will see there is no ego, it's making all those troubles, selfishness, cravings, and ill wills or hatred or ignorance. So you can let them go. So the best way to celebrate Gautama Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and nirvana is that we become like him and become real example and an exemplifier in this 21st century. It was very useful, that's why it continued for 2,500 years in human history. And this is very relevant in today's life, right here in the West, in New York City, to cultivate our inner peace, inner joy, and experiencing nirvana by enjoyment of practicing letting go, and delightful experience of concentrating your mind on your breath and your inner center. And it is a bliss and very satisfying experience. If you keep practicing it, you will experience what Buddha discovered, what Buddha talked about, this ultimate and happiness of freedom.